Today, we're diving into a book that you've almost definitely heard of, one that became this massive global phenomenon, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. It's this incredible mix of psychology, philosophy, and just some really practical advice that somehow connected with millions of people. So, what's the big deal? What makes this book so powerful? Well, let's get into it. And when I say phenomenon, I am not kidding. We're talking over 10 million copies sold. A number like that isn't just good marketing. It tells you that the ideas inside struck a very, very deep chord with people all over the world.
So that brings us to the big question, right? What is this book really about, underneath it all? What's the core philosophy that got everyone talking, and why did it land so hard? We're going to break it all down, starting with the foundational idea that everything else is built on.
To really get the rules, you first have to understand the philosophy behind them. You see, this isn't just a random list of helpful hints. It's a whole framework for life, a way to confront all the hard stuff, what Peterson calls the antidote to chaos.
The whole thing starts with a pretty stark statement, a real gut punch. Life is suffering. Now, hold on. I know that sounds incredibly pessimistic, but for Peterson, that's not the point. He sees it as just the truth. It's the realistic starting point you have to accept before you can build a life that actually works.
And this is where the book's angle gets really unique. So much of the self-help world asks, how can I be happy? Peterson basically throws that question out the window. Instead, he asks, how can I build a life that's strong enough to handle the fact that things will inevitably go wrong? It's a really powerful switch, from chasing a fleeting feeling to building real, solid strength.
So, if happiness isn't the main goal, what is? The book's answer is one single word: meaning. And here's the kicker. Meaning is defined as the antidote to chaos. It's what you find when you voluntarily, willingly accept responsibility. This whole idea that we find our purpose by choosing to carry a weight, that's the engine that drives the entire book.
Now, I know that can sound a little abstract, meaning and responsibility. So let's bring it down to earth and see how this all works in practice. We're going to look at 3 specific rules that show how these big ideas get turned into actual concrete actions.
All right, so the very first rule sounds like something your parents might have told you 1,000 times. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Super simple, right? But as you can probably guess, this is about way more than just good posture. It's actually a command for your mind.
So the logic here is pretty wild. It connects our biology to our mindset. Peterson famously uses the example of lobsters. Yeah, lobsters. He points out that when a lobster wins a fight, it stands up tall. It makes itself look big. The loser kind of curls up and slumps away. This isn't just for show. It's literally tied to their brain chemistry. So the idea is, by standing up straight, you're hacking into that same ancient system. You're sending a signal to your own brain that says, hey, I'm capable. I'm ready to face whatever's coming.
Okay, next up, Rule 2. This one shifts the focus from our body to our inner voice. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. This is a direct shot at that harsh inner critic that so many of us live with every single day. And this question just cuts right to the heart of it. I mean, think about it. The way you talk to yourself in your own head. Would you ever say those things to a friend you cared about or a child? For most of us, the answer is absolutely not.
So this rule is all about flipping that script. It's a call to turn that same care and compassion you'd give to someone else inward, onto yourself. It's about becoming your own ally in this journey of life, instead of being your own worst enemy.
And for our last example, let's jump to Rule 6, which is probably one of the most famous and direct ones. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. This is a massive, massive call for personal accountability.
The message is basically, before you go out there trying to fix the world's problems, take a hard look in the mirror. Are your own habits a mess? Are your relationships in chaos? The idea is that real, lasting change starts by taking radical responsibility for your own little corner of the universe first. So with rules like these, you can kind of start to see why this book made such a huge splash. But its appeal is pretty complex, and believe me, it is definitely not without its critics. So let's explore both sides of that. The book's magic really lies in its unique formula. It's so much more than just an advice book.
Peterson weaves together these ancient myths, modern science, stories from his work as a psychologist, and even brutally honest tales from his own struggles. That combination gives the rules this incredible weight, making them feel less like instructions and more like, well, like distilled human wisdom.
But at the same time, we have to talk about the critiques. For some people, the writing is just really dense and academic, making it kind of a slog to get through. Others find the tone to be way too intense. And his interpretations of myths and religious texts, well, that's a major source of controversy and debate. It's a book that creates really strong reactions, one way or the other.
So, after looking at the philosophy, a few of the rules, and the book's reception, what's the big takeaway here? What is the one enduring message at the very heart of 12 Rules for Life?
It can really be boiled down to this simple three-step path. First, you have to acknowledge that chaos and suffering are just part of the deal of being alive. Second, you have to consciously, voluntarily choose your responsibilities, your goals, your values, your family. And third, you find your meaning and your strength in the very act of carrying that weight you chose.
And this brings us to one last powerful quote that I think just perfectly captures the entire book. Strength comes from carrying the right weight. It completely reframes responsibility. It's not a burden you're supposed to avoid. It's the very tool you use to build a meaningful life, one that can withstand any storm. And so the book leaves you with a deeply personal question. What weight are you choosing to carry?